Hello everybody, today we're going to learn the daily Tanya for Kaf Vav Addar base. So yesterday in Kaf Hey we learned about the difference again between actions with intent, actions with a holy intent, and actions that are without intent. These actions specifically we're speaking about are mitzvahs, are the fulfillment of God's commandments, right? So here the Alter Rebbe explained that although they're all expressions of God's will, there are different levels of expression. And the expression of God's will being done in an action which is through a mitzvah that has intent behind it, and a mitzvah that has no intent, that has no kavanah, then there is a massive difference. It's uncomparable. Even though the intent without the action is again like a soul without a body, which doesn't have an expression, and the whole point is expression. Okay. We also went on to say that there are sort of 4 levels of life of expression of God's will, which are daimim, tzemech, chai, medaber. Right? There are inanimate, vegetable, and what's called animal and speaking being, speaking creature. And the Alter Rebbe compared doing a mitzvah without kavanah. He compared that to, he broke that into 2, and he said that this corresponds to the 2 lower levels. That performing a mere action that has no sort of, that doesn't have any sort of, that doesn't signify anything per se, like for example, again, putting on tefillin, or giving tzedakah, or keeping Shabbos, right, is sort of on the level of the inanimate object, whereas mitzvahs like learning Torah, like davening, which you at least speak words, which should ideally have meaning behind them. This is sort of a higher level. This is comparable to the botanical, to the vegetable. Okay, and so now we're going to get to the 2 higher levels, and these 2 higher levels correspond to the neshama, to the spirit, to the godly soul, and they also correspond to the 2 higher levels of this order, and these are the 2 levels of kavanah. So let's see what kinds of kavanah we can have. Whoever's mind is fit to know God, and to what's the word? To meditate or to concentrate on His greatness. And from that meditation, from that contemplation of God's greatness, to come first to an awe of God, an awe of God's greatness, right, and therefore to a love of God, right, which is expressed in the right side of the heart. Liot nafsho tzme'a l'Hashem. So what does it mean? What does love mean here? It means that for his soul to be to thirst for God's closeness. Right, to become a thirst, a desire to become close to God through doing the mitzvahs and learning Torah. Because doing mitzvahs and learning Torah are the ways in which God expresses His will in the world, but more particularly in the soul of the doer. Okay, and to unite with Him and to adhere to God. And with this intent, to become close to God in this way, so it's with this intent that he learns Torah, and he does the mitzvahs, וכן בכוונה זו מתפלל ומברך, and it is with this intent that he prays and he says brachas, blessings. הרי כוונה זו על דרך משל, כמו נשמת המדבר. So this sort of intent, this sort of kavana, is like the soul of the speaking being. It's like the neshama, the spirit of the speaking being, the neshama of the medaber. Why is that? Shehu bal sechel uvchira. Because the speaking being has a mind, and he has the capacity for free choice. Uvedat yedaber, and he speaks mindfully. Umish, okay, and so therefore this sort of more contemplative kind of kavana, kind of intent, which is just to become close to God simply because God is of such greatness, right? We're focused on God. This is the sort of higher, this is the higher kavana. Umisha da'ato ktsara, and whoever's mind is less capable, lidau litbonen bigdulat ensof baruch hu, to introspect and to meditate on the greatness of God, leolida ahava mibinato, right, and to therefore bring about love of God from that contemplation. V'chen hayira b'mocho ufachad Hashem b'libo, right, and he cannot bring about the awe of God and the love of God in the same way as before. רק שזוכר ומעורר את האהבה הטבעית המסותרת בליבו. What can he do? He can sort of remember and recall the natural love that all Jewish people have for God, which is it is an inheritance, it is a birthright that we have. He'll get into this later, but he makes a fundamental claim, an axiomatic claim, that every Jew fundamentally in their heart of hearts loves God and will give their life for God's name, for his greatness. And that has a lot of implications, but one of them here is that you can recall that sort of natural love that we have, okay, and that is in some sense enough. Okay, right? So he takes this natural love out of, he reveals it where it was hidden in the heart. He reveals it in the mind. על כל פנים, שיהיה רצונו שבמוחו ותענוות ליבו, מסכים ומתרצה בריצוי גמור, באמת, לאמיתו, למסור נפשו בפועל ממש על ייחוד השם. Or at the very least, that his conscious will should agree to this natural love that we have, and should be aware of it, and should love God consciously. כדי לדבקה בו נפשו אלוקית ולבושע ולקרנן בייחודו ואחדותו שהוא רצון העליון המלובש בתלמוד תורה וקיום המצוות כנ"ל. Okay? And that at least the will should agree and should want to unite with God fully and completely by learning Torah and by doing mitzvahs which hold within them God's will, which is again completely united with his person. וגם היראה כלולה בה, and also the awe or the fear in this case is included in this. לקבל מלכותו, to accept God's suzerainty, God's kingship, שלא למרוד בו, so as not to rebel against him, God forbid, חס ושלום. ובחינה זו היסור מרע, and this is what will cause man to keep off of the evil path. ועושה וכוונה זו הוא סור מרע ועושה טוב. And with this intent, it is with this intent in mind that he avoids evil and chooses and does good. ולומד and learns Torah ומתפלל and prays ומברך and says brachas בפירוש המילות לבדו. Okay, and he does all these things with only the literal meaning of the words in mind. בלא דחילו ורחימו בהתגלות ליבו. Okay, so he has this is sort of describing somebody who's praying, and he means the words, but he doesn't have these sort of grand intent that we saw before. He does intend to unite with God, and he does have in his conscious mind the will to do that, or at least the agreement that is what he wants. But again, it's not that grand, sort of more philosophical love that we saw before. This intent is like it's like the neshama, the spirit of the animal, which does not have any free choice and does not have mind. V'kol midotav, and all of its traits, the traits of the animal, which are fear of the things that hurt it, and love for the things that are pleasing to it. And these are merely natural. And they do not come from his introspection or contemplation. And so, like this, like the animal, are the love and the natural fear that we have towards God. As this is, again, it's not to say that this is like an animal, but it's to say that it's comparable to an animal in comparison to a more conscious love. And this love and fear which are hidden in the hearts of all Israel, because they are an inheritance, like we said, from our forefathers, and they're natural to us. And this is where the text ends, but I wanted to leave with a point, and another big difference, I should say, between the first kind of love and the second kind of love is that in the first kind of love, you're fundamentally focused on God. You're fundamentally focused on the beloved, right? You focus first and foremost on who it is we are loving, who it is we are in awe of, and so on. And in the second case, you're focused on your own natural reaction to God, which is love. So it's sort of subtle. In one case, we are creating the emotion is being driven through our focus on God, through our focus on the beloved, and in the second case, it is the emotion that is driving us. And it's not just that it's the emotion that's driving us, and that emotions are somehow bad, but it's that it's fundamentally focused on ourselves, fundamentally focused on our own reaction, even in a spiritual and holy sense. Whereas it is a higher love to focus on the other, right? It's comparable to a couple, right, where the husband wants to, let's say, do something romantic for his wife, so he buys her flowers, but forgets that she's allergic to flowers, right? He was more focused on his emotion of love for her and less focused on her actual needs. So I hope that little point sort of helped clear up what Alter Rebbe Baal Tanya was telling us. And so good Shabbos, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow.